Welcome to Just Thinking. The town election is on May 21st, and to help you learn about the candidates, I will be interviewing each one that is running for a contested seat. I will ask the same questions of each candidate for an office so we can compare and draw our own conclusions from their responses. These interviews run about 20 minutes each and can be found on the Holliston Cable Access Facebook page and at www.hcattv.org, so you can watch anywhere and at any time. So today's candidate is candidate for Selectman, who is actually a Selectman. You're chair right now, right?
I am chair right now, yes, thank you.
Jay Marsden, welcome.
Thank you, great to be here.
So this is your third term?
I'm in my third term right now, yes.
Campaigning
correct.
For your fourth term?
Campaigning for my fourth, correct.
So why are you interested in this position again? Or still?
Well, I've been asked that question a couple of times.
By your wife, mostly.
That's
your kids have asked a few times.
You know, being a selectman is, I think, one of the highlights of my professional career, in the sense that you really get to be an agent of the town in terms of helping people. You know, people come to you all the time with things that they need some assistance in, and you really have an opportunity to sort of help them understand and guide them through the process. And they call for things that not necessarily are selectman specific, but they call for things that they want some assistance in, and they need somebody to advocate for them around a certain issue that's important to them. And as an attorney, I spend a bunch of my days and a bunch of my time during my days advocating for clients. And so to be able to advocate for somebody who needs to get something done in the sense that it's going to help them have a great experience and really enjoy all the great things that Holliston has to offer, and to help them understand how government works and where they can walk away with the sense that, you know, my tax dollars actually improve my life and make things better for me in my hometown. It's really a great opportunity to help people through government, where in this day and age people tend to be cynical and down on government. And it's really a way to be able to say to somebody, you know what, we can not only fix that, but we can fix that, you know, rather quickly and hopefully rather efficiently and rather effectively, and help people have a positive experience and a positive you know, interaction with government. And that's one of the things that I love the most about it, is being able to do things for people that they reflect on and say, thank you for the help. So it's really an opportunity to really give back. You
really have fun doing this.
I do. I love it. I've been blessed with the opportunity to work with three, and this is the third sort of incarnation of the Boards of Selectmen. You know, having done it, you know, there's a lot of different personalities that show up on the board, and it's been an opportunity to work with a bunch of great folks, and we've always gotten along. That doesn't mean we've always agreed, but we've been able to agree diplomatically and professionally, and it hasn't impacted our relationships sort of off camera.
All right, so describe the specific skills or experience that you bring to this post.
Well, from an experience perspective, I think I bring my 9 years in the job. You know, from having been at that table as well, one of the challenges to being a selectman is you don't know what's coming your way, you know, and there are a lot of things that are going to show up, and people ask all the time, you know, what are you going to do going forward? And you could talk about a lot of the things that you think are important, and there's a lot of issues that you might want to bring forward as sort of a planning for the future. But there are a lot of things that just come and find you that you weren't expecting, you weren't planning for. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. And I think my experience in that role, or in this role for the past 9 years, has helped me. There is a sort of a method to the madness, and I know people don't always like to hear that, but there is a way that government has to work from a process perspective and from a transparency perspective, and so that everyone's rights and everyone's position is sort of honored, and everyone gets a chance to be heard. And so the experience that I've had over the last 9 years, understanding what those things look like, I think that's one of the biggest assets that I bring to this role. And having had that experience, and then in my capacity and my background as an attorney, I hope that over the last 9 years, I think I have, and I hope people feel that I have, I've gained a little bit better sense of how to issue spot a lot of the things that we as a town might need to be on the lookout for as we go forward. So as an attorney, you're trained to not necessarily have all the answers, but you're trained to know this is something that we might need to look into a little bit further. This is something that might give us a little bit of a problem down the road. And you get better the longer you're in the role at issue spotting a lot of those things to hopefully avoid headaches down the road that might cost the town money or might put the town in a position that we don't want to be in. So I feel like I've grown a lot in that capacity and the ability to address a lot of these things and ask better questions.
What do you think are the 3 most important functions of the Office of Selectman?
Well, the biggest part of your job as a selectman is to be the executive authority for the town and to sort of manage the overall aspects of what's going on in town. And I don't want to say that that's the only thing you do, because there are a lot of things that fall under that umbrella. But I feel like that's the number one thing, is really to make sure that different aspects of town, many things that people take for granted. I mean, there's a lot of things that people, want government to just do for them and have an expectation that it should do for them. And so it's really executing on some, very basic blocking and tackling things. Some of those things we've done really well at. Some of those things we've had problems with, and we've had to address those. We've had to issue spot those. We've had to fix those. But one of them is managing the town. Along with managing the town is hiring good people.
Yes.
And Holliston is a north of a $60 million a year operation, and you have certain policies, you have certain procedures that we hope are in place, that we need to put in place. And people run those systems, and then you hopefully have those systems that sort of run the town so that people's experience and people's expectation can be the same time and time again. You don't want to find yourself in a position where the answer is, well, this person told me to do it this way, or this person told me this was okay, and then they get a different answer. There's nothing people find more frustrating than being sent down a bunch of sort of rabbit holes to not really understand what's going on. So manage the overall aspect of the town, hire good people to help execute on what the what government is going to do for people, and then the last part is, as best you can, set policies and goals for things that are going to happen going forward. Some of those policies and goals are an offshoot of things that you've experienced, and some of those policies and goals are things that are the outcome of things that haven't worked. You sort of, you try to run things in a certain way, so you break them, if you will, and then when they break, you learn how to fix them so that next time those things won't happen. But I think that's a big part of what you're trying to do as a member of the Board of Selectmen, is you're trying to manage the town, hire good people, and put together policies and procedures and set goals so that you can sort of look at what the direction of the town is going to look like and what's going to move the town forward to benefit everybody.
Okay. So what is the top change, improvement, or service that you want to see in place at the end of the next term, should you be elected?
Well, there's actually 2 things that I want to focus on. One of them is one of the things that I just mentioned, which is this idea of, and it's not very glamorous, but it's this idea of really buttoning up the policies and procedures that we have in town. And the reason that this is important is that, as people move in and out of positions, we want to have an organization set up. We want to have policies and procedures in place so that no matter who comes into these roles and no matter what type of turnover we see, and we're going to start seeing more turnover than we've seen in the past. It's just a demographic issue. But we want to make sure that the people who come in and that the people who replace the folks, the great folks that we have that we work with in town now, know exactly what the expectation is coming in so that they can move forward in a way that everybody understands how the town of Holliston operates and how the town of Holliston can best serve the taxpayer.
So it's for consistency.
It's for consistency so that people themselves can plan, whether it's in the planning area so that when developers come in, they know what to expect, whether it's as a homeowner, when you're doing things to your own house or making improvements to your own property so that you understand. It's for the employees in town so that they understand the policies and procedures so that they have an enjoyable experience working here, which means they will reflect that enjoyable experience back on the taxpayers that they serve. That's one of the things that I'm most focused on. The other thing is a little bit of a bigger slice of the cake, if you will, and it revolves around the downtown. And we've talked about this at a number of different meetings. It's come up most recently from some of the folks at the Economic Development Committee. It's come up as part of the discussion around the Blair Square, sort of, I'm not going to call it a revitalization, but as executing on the vision down there. But the folks in Sherborne, and there's a couple of groups over there that are doing a lot of work around, their downtown, obviously a little bit different than ours. They have a different layout, different footprint. But they have a program and they have an initiative going on over there where they want to focus on again, I don't want to call it a revitalization, but it's a much more comprehensive look at actual physical space, how they use infrastructure, how they use water, how they use some of these other aspects of town to better integrate everything that's going on downtown. And one of the things that really made me think about this was, we have a new restaurant opening up downtown. The buzz around this one new restaurant. Right now, again, we're a community that is surrounded by other great communities with great downtowns, and they're a stone's throw away. But the buzz that I hear from people about this one endeavor is just, it's lighting up the board.
Yep.
And so the idea that there's this much energy and this much excitement and there's this much anticipation about a place that's opening up, one place that replaced another restaurant, right? So again, there's this type. So what that tells me is that there's a real interest in people who have moved to Holliston from the city, have moved to Holliston from areas of the city that is somewhat suburban, but have a real urban, I'm not going to say an urban city vibe, but they have a lot going on in their downtown areas. And you're seeing this in other communities. You're seeing it in Hudson. You're seeing it in Medfield. You're seeing it in some of these other areas. So I think that because there's so much interest, and that interest is being sort of dovetailed into some of the other things that we have going on downtown, I think there's a real opportunity there to talk about, people have asked about other properties in town. People have asked about properties in town that maybe, they'd like to see developed a little bit more. They'd like to see cleaned up. They'd like to see brought up to a certain standard. So I think there's a real opportunity for us to coalesce around making, I am by no means saying downtown is not vibrant now. But I think because there's so much excitement going on around this one idea of what's happening down there, leads me to believe that people want more of that type of excitement downtown, and I think that there's a real opportunity there. That's something that I would love to see, if you ask me sort of put in place, 3 years from now, that's something that I'm not going to say it's going to be solved. I'm not going to say it's something that's going to be finished or completed, but I think there needs to be a much greater look at how all of that comes down. And that's going to be infrastructure, and there's going to be a discussion around how much of that the town might have to pick up the tab for, that whether there's a downtown revitalization. And I'm downtown every day. I mean, I have a business right downtown. I'm down there all the time. So to walk around and see some of those things, I think there's a real opportunity. And again, driven by the fact that there's so much excitement around one opportunity down there, leads me to believe that there's more excitement to be found. So
I've always thought so.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do think it changes once you are down there. When you move into downtown,
Sure.
There's a very different feeling about what downtown is.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like a neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Just like your neighborhood where your house is, and it has its own rhythm and its own personality and the whole 9 yards. And once you know it, you kind of get into it. It's exciting.
Yes.
And there's great potential down there. So with that thought, let's segue to the question that came on Facebook from a resident. What are your thoughts about the former Gulf Station downtown? We all know what we think, but anyway, and is there anything that the town could do with it in the future? What would you propose?
Sure. So, so the lawyer in me says, obviously, first and foremost, any discussion around anybody's property obviously has to be respectful of somebody's private property rights and somebody's ability to do whatever they think they want to do with their property, assuming that they're caught up on their taxes and things of that nature. So
let's start with, though, it is private property still.
Yes.
And I think there's a misunderstanding out there.
Yes. We get asked about it all the time, and that's the first thing I say to everybody. I go, look, my neighbor might not like how high I let my lawn get. That doesn't let them in the front door to start, doing things that I might not necessarily be excited about. But that being said, assuming that somebody's just asking, hypothetically speaking, what would we do? I mean, I think that's a commercial property that has, it's right, it's right on the main drag, if you will, for downtown. What would I want to see done with it? What I want to see done with it is not what other people want to see done with it. There is no end to the things that are going on, that could go on in a location like that. And, I'm partial to something that would bring people down, let's say, outside of the normal sort of 9 to 5, hours.
Yeah.
And so if that means that it's some type of, I'm a live music nut. So if it's a live music venue, if it's somebody who comes in and says, look, we have an opportunity to do something very different here, and I would love to see somebody come in and maybe integrate the facade and the infrastructure of what's already there. And you see this in a lot of different communities where somebody says, look, we don't have to come in and start from scratch. The attractiveness, the vibe that we're trying to create is a function of what's already going on there. And I have a couple of friends of mine that I meet down there on a regular basis for lunch, and we walk by and we've talked out loud 100 times as to what we'd want to see happen there. And does that mean that somebody, when the weather breaks like it's starting to do, somebody slides those doors open and you have some type of outdoor space that's drawing people in and then bringing people downtown? Anything like that, I think that's fantastic. When you go out to other communities and you see what people are doing with spaces there, there's a lot of inclusion of the existing infrastructure that's there. It's the brick, it's some type of vintage vibe on the inside. It's the exposed brick, it's the exposed HVAC system. So I think for somebody who's got some vision and who's got some financial backing, and if they want to go in and talk to the owner and do something like that, then I think that would be a real win for downtown. It's a real, it could be a gem in the right hands. At the same time, the current owner could say, look, we've, for whatever reason, we're now going to get behind a project that brings this property up to what we think its highest and best use could be, and they can come back and say, you know what, we want to be a ongoing concern downtown. We want to be back in the gas station business or in the inspection business, or whether they whether they deliver those things or not. There's lots of opportunities, and I think that, like any of those properties downtown, there's a couple that need special attention just because of their location and where they are, and I think that could be one of them.
We are using up our time very quickly.
Oh, goodness, okay.
Okay, so I am going to ask you, a common opinion in Holliston is that the reason we're popular is because of the schools, and that is one of the reasons that our property values tend to be high and also stay there. Do you agree with that?
Well, my answer is I don't know, right? The lawyer answer is it depends, right? My kids have gone through the school system, both of them in the French immersion program. I don't speak a lick of French. I don't speak a word of it. When they tell me what they're doing in their French classrooms, I make them tell me in French, even though I have no idea what they're talking about, because I just love hearing them speak the language, and they've done a phenomenal job. As far as whether the schools raise the property values, or the property values are the ones that have made the schools be very successful, that's a chicken and egg question, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if there's a cause and effect, and I don't know which comes first. I do know that a town like Holliston, and as somebody who spends a fair amount of time at the school for parent-teacher night, I think that property values are certainly part of it. I think that the school helps our property values. I think the property values help the schools. I think it's a partnership. I don't know which one drives the other. I also know that what really is something that can't be measured quantifiably is the level of engagement of everybody in town. When you go to those parent-teacher nights, it's shoulder to shoulder in the hallway. Everybody wants to talk to the teachers. Everybody wants to know what's going on. Everybody wants to know, how can I help? So I really think it might be a three legs of a stool approach, that not one thing individually in and of its own. I think it's potentially a combination of all three of those things. Again, I don't know the cause and effect. I know that they all work, and I think that it's important to have all three of them in place. Okay.
What are you most proud of from your tenure on the board?
I am most proud of a couple of things that we've done, and I'm proud of something that didn't happen. One of the things I'm most proud about was our ability to get a DPW in place. The reason for that is I think one of our most challenging assets to manage is water. I know everybody's not happy with the quality of it, and I understand that, and I'm sympathetic to it, and I know we need to do more work in that area. But putting a DPW in place was the first step in solving that problem, and I think that was critical to do, and we were able to manage that process and manage it really well, so I'm very happy about that. The second thing that I'm very, very happy that we didn't do was we didn't become the neighbor to a casino. And this is one of the things that, you talk a lot about what government's done and what government didn't get done that week, but this was an undertaking of epic and heroic proportions. Speaking for myself, because that's what we're here for, and I get to talk about myself for 20 minutes, I worked very closely with an intramural organization of surrounding towns and communities. For anybody who remembers, we went to the town, and the town graciously agreed to put money on the table so that we could push back on what we considered were many of the false narratives and empty promises of the casino developers as to how awesome a casino was going to be for all these surrounding communities and towns. That didn't happen. People would call me all the time and say, you have no idea what impact this casino is going to have on Holliston. And I would say to those people, you have no idea what impact this casino is going to have on my backyard. because I'm about 100 feet from it, because that's where I live and that's where it was going to go. So that's one of the things I'm most proud of, that did not come to fruition. And the last thing, one of the things that I'm most proud of is Holliston has always prided itself on its ability to be very, very cognizant of its financial sustainability. And a number of years back, when we had the opportunity to change the plan design of how we were handling health insurance benefits in the town, we saved $1.5 million a year by going to a different plan, which the legislature had granted us the authority to do by some special legislation. And we didn't waste that $1.5 million. We took that $1.5 million and we put it into what's called an OPEB trust fund to protect and preserve benefits for the people who come here and work in Holliston and serve our community. Many of those people are Holliston residents themselves, to make sure that the benefit promises that we made to residents will be there for them when they retire or when they are actually looking for those benefits. We're probably the only community in the entire state of Massachusetts that's supporting this type of initiative to the degree that we are. I went to Beacon Hill. I testified in favor of this legislation and the benefit that it would have to provide and support Holliston financially, so that our borrowing costs and our record, if you will, with Wall Street and the people we might borrow money from is solid, which means we save money over the long term and we keep promises we've made to people who have been committed to coming to Holliston to make it the great community that we all know and love. So that's one of the other three that I'm most proud of.
All right, so now we're out of time, so I'm going to skip a couple of questions.
Please do.
I'm going to ask you, what is your biggest regret? That is, what do you want to do over for? Everybody's got some do-over.
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, I don't know if it's a regret at the result, but I will say this. Love them or hate them, the lights that went in downtown, I do have some regrets over what I would probably perceive as a failure on my part to do a better job highlighting the benefit of that project to folks who were sort of naysayers about the project. And I understand that there are people who absolutely are very unhappy with the way that project came out. Myself, as somebody who spends a fair amount of time downtown and who watches people cross that street now as compared to in the prior incarnation of what that looked like, I think it's better. I think it's safer. My heart is not in my throat every time somebody does that, for all the reasons that we know. I mean, it was a system that needed an improvement. I think those lights brought order to everything that's already been going on downtown, and the movement and the way that the traffic flow went and the way that. But I know some people are very unhappy about it, and unfortunately, that's one of the toughest things about being a selectman is no matter what decision you make, you're going to make some people very happy and you're going to make some people very unhappy. And for the folks who are unhappy, that's one of my regrets. My regret is that I was unable to communicate to them in such a way that they would really understand the long-term benefit that this is going to bring to downtown. So, I did my best, but like everything, you can't make everybody happy all the time. But that's probably one of my biggest regrets. And to be fair, there are some people who my relationship is very different than it was before the lights went in, because they're very unhappy about the position that I took. So that's a regret of mine, and I'm certainly unhappy that happened. But in the end, I think it was any decision I've ever made as a selectman, I've always tried to make it as being in the best interest of the town of Holliston. And I recognize that sometimes people aren't going to be happy about it.
Okay. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do your final pitch.
30 seconds. So my final pitch is this. This has been a tremendous opportunity for me, and I appreciate everybody that supported me over the last 9 years or so. And I really want to take the opportunity to thank those folks for that support. Going forward, I would ask people to look at my experience, the time that I've spent in the job, understanding that every decision I've ever made has been hopefully in the best long-term interests for the town of Holliston. That doesn't make them easy decisions, but I think that my experience, my ability to issue spot any changes that the town faces going forward, and to address those issues in a way that protects the town of Holliston, protects the taxpayers of the town of Holliston, and continues to make Holliston the great town that we all know and love, that's why I would ask for your vote this coming May.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
Now that the candidates have shared their views, please be sure to do your part and vote on May 21st at the high school field house between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Turnout for the town election in 2017 was 11%. That's just 1,100 voters. In 2018, 16% turned out. We'd like to beat that this year and hit 20% or more. There are also 2 questions on the ballot about retail marijuana. And we need to do these questions to bring our town bylaws into line with the latest state regulations. Local government hits you at home and is where you have the biggest influence. And Holliston is the living model of true democracy. Please participate. Good night.